Hi everyone, and welcome to the first webinar in our series, Every Hour Counts. In this webinar, we will be looking at how you can share your skills to transform schools. For those who are new to Charterpath, just a little background before we dive into the detail. Alex and I trained as accountants at PricewaterhouseCoopers and started volunteering in general roles. Me as a van driver for a homeless shelter, and Alex in programs reading with children, before realizing that charities could get the most benefit from us using our financial skills. We also recognized that there were huge professional benefits to skills-based volunteering, as well as the usual feel-good factor. Next slide, Susie, please. We then specifically started Charterpath during the pandemic, seeing firsthand the impact on the charity sector, with a huge fall in donations and volunteers, at the same time as a rise in demand. This impossible challenge has continued with the cost of living crisis, with more people than ever turning to charities for support. It's unsurprising then that financial skills are the most in-demand skill set for charities and for governing boards, according to the Department for Education. There is also a great need for diversity of volunteers. At Charterpath, we want to support the nonprofit sector by inspiring more finance professionals into skills-based volunteering. Susie, if you could flip to the next slide. This sets out our mission. At the moment, we estimate about 10% of finance professionals volunteer their skills, and we would like to increase this to 50%. This event is one of a series to help and support people who are interested in using their skills and want to understand how to get involved. Just turning to the next slide, at Charterpath, we support on a wide range of volunteer roles where financial skills will be beneficial, from being a charity trustee or specifically a charity treasurer to being a finance volunteer. And in this webinar, we'll be focused specifically on the school governor role. This is something that we're particularly passionate about at Charterpath. Both Alex and I are school governors, and we consider it one of the best entry points into skills-based volunteering, as the roles and responsibilities are more clearly defined than in other volunteer roles. For us, it's also such a rewarding opportunity to volunteer your skills and transform skills by influencing the next generation of young people. Over the next 30 to 45 minutes, we'll be covering what school governorship involves, the personal and professional benefits of becoming a school governor, and how to get started. And for this, if you turn to the next slide, please, Susie, we're joined by the wonderful Inspiring Governance. Susie and Dom, it's great to see you both again. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your expertise. If I hand over to you, please, to introduce yourselves and to tell us a bit more about Inspiring Governance.
Thank you so much, Alice, and it's lovely to be back with you at Charterpath again, and we really value your support to try and encourage more people from the finance sector becoming school governors. So just a quick introduction, I'm Susie Broadhead. I'm the Head of Employer Partnerships at Education Employers, the charity that runs Inspiring Governance. And Dom?
I'm Dominic Judge. I'm Director of Governance Programmes and Deputy CEO at Education Employers.
And what we do, we help support by using the wonderful volunteers from the world of work to raise aspirations and broaden horizons for young people through 3 different opportunities for volunteering in schools. Inspiring the Future is about connecting those skilled professionals with the world of from the world of work with young people to really understand what's available to them in terms of their career choices for the future, starting right down in primary schools to challenge some of those stereotypes that start becoming ingrained from the age of 5 about what is the right career for you based on your familiar surroundings and those that you are in connection with. So we try and sort of myth bust about actually an opportunity for everyone to get involved in any type of career. And what we're here today to talk about is inspiring governance, so strategic opportunities to develop and transform schools. So we're going to work our way through a little bit more about what that actually entails and how we do that. So since the academic year 16-17, we've now placed just over 7,600 governors in English schools through our funded partnership with Department for Education. And that's from across all different employers, different professions, where they're giving up their time to support those schools to be the very best that they can for those young people.
So you're from the financial sector. Let's look at the numbers and let's look at the big picture of why we have school governing boards in our schools. Well, every year, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development review the most developed education systems in the world, and they produce a report called Education at a Glance. And every year it shows that the UK is 5th in the world in terms of the percentage of its GDP that it invests in education. So there's billions of pounds of taxpayers' money going directly into our schools and colleges. We also have one of the most autonomous education systems in the world. That means our head teachers have more freedoms to make decisions than most other countries in the world. And that's been down to academisation and down to less local political management of schools than in other countries. And thirdly, in terms of the numbers, we have the largest pay ratio in the world between the average pay of one of our head teachers and the average pay of one of our teachers. So you have billions of pounds going into schools, highly paid leaders with lots of freedoms. That's a recipe for a school-led system, innovation, high standards, but actually without a really large dollop of strong financial and governance oversight, that's a recipe that can fall flat. So it's really important that we have governors and volunteers overseeing our schools in England. And our own research shows it's never a better time to become a governor. The clarity of purpose of the role is clearer than it's ever been before. And there is more support available for governors than there has ever been in terms of our research looking back over the last decade. So the purpose of governance, Susie.
Yep, so that's some of the reasons behind why we need governance, but actually what would you be doing? So the three main functions of being a governor is around ensuring that clarity of vision and ethos and strategic direction of the school. So for every young person is achieving their very best and ensuring that journey is going in the right direction. And by doing that, you're holding the executive leaders to account within those schools, so the head teacher and the senior leadership team, to make sure that the educational performance of the organisation itself and the young people within the schools, and that includes the efficient and effective performance management of staff. And one of the most crucial roles is overseeing the financial performance of the organisation. So as Dom said, the billions of pounds that's going into the education system, making sure that every pound that's invested in our education system is money well spent. And we'll delve a little bit more into that financial aspect of being a governor shortly. So in terms of what does that look like if you were to sign up to become a governor, what we say is that usually the first term of office as a governor is around about 4 years. And as you're starting in the role, you'd expect to be volunteering between 5 and 8 hours a month. And what that would look like is usually a 2-hour meeting every half term. I had our first one yesterday, and it was only an hour and a half, actually, bargain. Got half an hour back. And they're usually in the early evening. And prior to that, obviously, the expectation that you prepare for and read the board papers, because you need to be really clear about any decisions that you're being asked to make. So things like we were talking yesterday about whether the school should consider becoming an academy, and actually what does that mean for the school, the pupils, not just for now, but for the future as well. And then arguably the most exciting part, I think, of being a governor is actually spending time in the school, getting to know the staff and the pupils, and also seeing some of the decisions that you sit around a table discussing actually coming to fruition in the way in which that's then delivered within the school curriculum or throughout the school day. And then as you grow in confidence within the role, you then have the opportunity to consider additional opportunities to take part in that school development. So it might be recruitment of a new head teacher, appraisal of a head teacher and any of the senior leadership team. And you might also be asked to sit on one of the sort of subcommittees of the full governing boards. Usually there's a finance and resources committee in which, as you can expect, that has more of a focus around the budgets and value for money and ensuring best value for the decisions that are being made for those young people. Back in 2020 and through our own research, when people are posting roles on our platform, we can see, and as Alice said, finance comes up as number one in terms of the skills that schools are looking for to strengthen their governing bodies. However, there may be other skills and other experiences and other lived experience that you have that would be really valuable to come to be part of that governing board. So everybody, regardless of their age, background, or their experience within their professional setting, will bring something to the role as well. And arguably the most important thing is you've got passion, commitment, and a want to do something to give back to your local community as well.
Thanks, Susie. As Susie says, by a long way, financial skills are the most sought after skills for governing boards in terms of expertise. But it's really important to say, as finance professionals, you won't be doing day-to-day financial work in schools. The vast majority of schools now have school business managers who will be doing the day-to-day financial stuff. But as a governing body, you need to bring strategic challenge and support to the school executive day-to-day to manage the finances of school, make sure that you squeeze out every bit of value for money for the purpose of educating children. So that might be, for example, strategic oversight of the budgets. So every term, certainly in my governing board, we have a financial session looking at the budget and the direction of travel for the budget at a macro level. You'll be reviewing the school's forecasting and budget setting for every financial year, certainly at the end of March, looking at that. Ensuring financial compliance to ensure that schools are making sure that they have a risk register and overseeing those controls. Certainly suggesting cost savings and efficiencies. So our governing board, for example, has approved a decision this year to move to much more cost-effective LED lighting, which will save on our energy bills in the longer term and allow us to channel more money into schooling. Signing off purchases over a certain threshold, and potentially providing strategic advice around the procurement of facilities and services. So, for example, signing off, we've signed off a decision to renovate the Year 6 toilets, which got into a bit of a grassy state. But we're looking, over a certain threshold, schools have to get the permission of governors to agree to that work. And that's where you can bring your kind of really forensic insight and expertise on finance. So there's a whole range of strategic ways that you can support that governing board as a finance professional, and they will willingly accept that support and challenge. So what are the kind of issues that schools are grappling with that you will be exposed to more widely? Well, the top four, I think, whatever organisation you've been in, you will have had experience of helping manage these kind of challenges and have gone through experiences around this. The first one is the leadership of change. So, for example, there are a number of primary schools, for example, continuing to consider whether they move into academy trusts. And as part of that process, you'll have to support and challenge the school around their due diligence and their consultation with parents and so on. Looking after ever more finite resources, how do you scrutinise budgets and make value for money investment decisions? Something we've all been dealing with, recruiting and retaining the best staff. How do you ensure you market the school, ensure good staff retention, help to ensure that you're developing your staff as well so that they stay with you, and COVID and catch up, how you are supporting pupils with well-being, mental health, helping close the gap between more disadvantaged pupils and mainstream pupils. So all of those kind of four things you'll have dealt with in some way, maybe not around pupils, but in your own working roles. The fifth bullet is really about, this is a great opportunity for you to be part of a governing board that helps challenge and support the school prepare pupils for civic society and employment. So the next generation, how are they approaching PSHE, how are they approaching diversity, how are they approaching career-related learning. So you will all bring some really valuable support and challenge if you get involved in school governance, and schools will willingly have you on board. But what's in it for you? Well, our surveys show that of those people that we've placed, 95% are really enjoying the role. 97% would recommend it to a colleague or a friend. And we also know from National Government Association surveys that 3/4 of people on strategic governing boards feel that they are developing those strategic board level skills, which can be really important in terms of your career trajectories and developing leadership skills. Our own research that we launched with the CIPD 2 years ago, called Value of Volunteering, shows not just the benefits you give to schools, but the personal skill development that you get from volunteering, and particularly communicating and influencing was very high for governor volunteering. Benefits for employers, so better motivation and better productivity of staff by supporting them to volunteer. and personal health and well-being benefits, particularly during COVID, where people were feeling detached from society. So being part of something and helping a school in your local community, grounded in the community, different to your kind of day-to-day lives, is really, really important. We've got lots of case studies. Please do have a look at our case studies, people doing the role, and we'll speak to Alex shortly about his experiences. But for 3/4 of volunteers, it's really about giving back, and where people have had bad experiences of school, they want to shape good experiences of school for the next generation, or where they themselves have had really good experiences, they want others to experience those as well, and to thrive in life beyond school. In terms of a particular campaign we're running, and Alice mentioned it in her slides at the start around diversity, we, for the last 5 years, have been running a campaign called Everyone on Board, which is about encouraging colleagues from ethnic minority backgrounds onto school governing boards to bring a diversity of thought and challenge that helps those boards. And the numbers there really show the need for it. We know that 5% of governors are from a Black and global majority background. We know that's 4% of head teachers in schools, 9% of teachers. But we now have a primary pupil population that is 36%, 35% in secondary schools from Black and global majority populations. So there is a growing divergence there between those making and implementing decisions in schools and those on the receiving ends of those. And that's why we're trying to diversify governing boards to support them in their strategic role and race. You will be, for example, looking at data by ethnic category on achievement, GCSE, for example, or exclusions or behaviour, or you'll be looking at policies to ensure that they don't discriminate against any particular group in school. And we've worked with some fantastic partners alongside the NGA. We've worked with Operation Black Vote, the Civil Service Race Forum, the Black Young Professionals Network, who've all advocated through their networks the benefits of becoming a governor. And there are seeds of hope. So we know that 1/3 of our latest year's appointments come from ethnic minority backgrounds, and 15% of boards in a recent NGA survey were reporting that they are making appointments from an ethnic minority. And that's gone from 7 to 9 to 11 to 15% over the last years. But we want to go further and faster on that. So do consider that and share that via your networks. Right, that's the big picture around governance. I'm going to hand over to Susie now about how our Inspiring Government platform works and what to expect if you were to register with us. Susie.
Thank you. So hopefully we've inspired you to think about becoming a governor. So we're just going to talk you through how you might do that with Inspiring Governance. So we are an online recruitment service in terms of you create your own profile, just some basic personal information and a personal statement explaining why you want to be a governor and what skills you could bring to that governing board. Once your profile is then live, you would then see this sort of geographical mapping tool where you can search based on your work or your home postcode for any vacancies. So we also work with schools, multi-academy trusts and local authorities to post their vacancies on the platform. So every one of those little dots that you can see on the map is a series of vacancies we have, and if you hover over one of those, it gives you the name of the school, what they might be specifically looking for from their governor appointments, and a little bit about the school itself as well. It also gives you the option to express an interest in one of those roles, and that sends a message to the clerk, usually, of that governing board to connect with you to discuss further the role. But equally, once your profile is live on the platform, the schools that have got the vacancies can then see your profile and approach you directly to have a conversation about becoming a governor at their school. But prior to that, just in terms of creating your profile, there's a few top tips that we wanted to flag with you as well. So the first one is around, would you want to be a governor closer to where you work or closer to where you live? So is it about giving back to your local community, or actually from a work-life balance perspective, actually being governor near a school where you work so that you can drop in for the meetings on your way home? Obviously, we said lots of people would rather give back to their own local community in which they live, but that's very much up to you to decide what works best for you. In terms of having to think about the type of school you'd like to be a governor at, so we have vacancies at nurseries, primaries, separate infant, juniors, secondary schools, and also alternative provision and special schools. So have a think about perhaps where you have skills, knowledge or interests and expertise to decide which type of school you want to volunteer to be governor at. Obviously there's more primary schools than there are secondary schools, so we have more primary vacancies. And then when you create your personal statement, this is an opportunity to explain some of the skills that you would bring to the table and also why you would want to be a governor. So you can really showcase exactly what you're offering to the school and why you want to be a governor as well. So in terms of what happens next, so as I said, you might have that informal chat with the head or chair of governors about the vacancy, get to know the school. This is a really important two-way process as well, because you need to know that the school is right for you and vice versa as well. So we would always advocate a visit to the school, because as soon as you walk through the front door of a school, you'll know whether it's the right place for you. You get to meet other staff, other governors, the young people themselves as well. We know that around about 2/3 of recent appointments come with a bit of an interview process. Again, very much a two-way process. Your opportunity to ask questions of the head teacher and other governors about their aspirations for the school and any challenges and successes that they can foresee. You then, as a co-opted governor, be invited to shadow at a full governing board, and then the board would then vote you on to be a governor. And should you be appointed through Inspiring Governance, you then have free access for a year to the National Governance Association's Learning Link, which are online modules to support your development as a governor. So it covers every topic that you might encounter being a governor. And you also get the Welcome to Governance guide, which is a real good introduction to your role. Many schools themselves or local authorities or multi-academy trusts will also provide you with specific training within your own local area as well. And then I think one of the most important and valuable things that I had was being paired with a buddy that was an experienced governor on the board that I was sitting on. And we used to meet after meetings just to sort of rehash the meeting, ask questions, and then really understand sort of as you take your governor journey forward. And I think that was really, really valuable experience as well. So we're going to hand it back to Dom, who's going to introduce Alex to you.
Fab. Alex, a warm welcome, co-founder of Charterpath. We know that you're at Vardine School in Brighton, which is a mixed co-ed school, 11 to 16, so not yet A-levels, and have been there for some time. So I think it's really good for fellow professionals to hear from somebody who's doing it and what your experiences have been and some of the issues. So just a few questions then. What first inspired you to become a governor?
Yeah, so I became a governor in 2016, and there were a couple of parts to it. So one was, on a personal level, I was quite sort of the nerd at school growing up. So my mum was a teacher. I absolutely loved school. I was very fortunate to go to a very good state school down here in Brighton. And when we actually moved back to Brighton 8 or 9 years ago, I started volunteering actually through sister organisations, so Inspiring the Future. And I was just doing talks actually out in schools, local state schools, talk about my career. And it was through that actually, just spending time in schools, and I just really enjoyed giving back, that I had the idea to then become a school governor, got in touch with a few schools and took on the role. And for me, it was a chance to, in coming back to Brighton, try and give back a bit more to the local community and also meet new people as well. I didn't really know that many people, having grown up here, but then lived in London for a long time. So yeah, it was kind of those two parts coming together, really seeing the value of education, but being back in Brighton.
Yeah, brilliant. So a real commitment back to the community and a sense of place. My mum was also a teacher, by the way, which is probably why I'm a governor as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So say a little bit about that journey then, because for a number of people, it can seem a bit daunting joining governing board. There's a lot of acronyms in education to get up to speed with. It takes a while for people to find their kind of place and their voice. Say a little bit about from when you joined to how you kind of grew into the role and took on extra responsibilities in terms of your work-life balance as well.
Yeah, so when I started out as a school governor, I started out as the finance link governor for Vardine School, and so that was specifically a responsibility of like overseeing our the finances at maybe slightly closer level than the other governors and chaired our finance working group. And very much to Alice's point at the start, like saw this as a great way to get into volunteering because it was very structured. So there was a great induction to the school as part of becoming a governor, but also through the local authority. There was training specifically, for example, in school finances. So that's where I kind of started, and that was my skills, that was my core skill. But then the journey's been incredible since. So after doing that role for a couple of years, I took on the role of chair of governance for Arndine School for 4 years. And through that, suddenly, learning so much more about, secondary school education, whether it was areas like safeguarding, for example, like you say, picking up lots of the acronyms, whether it's Progress 8 or Attainment 8, things that at first I just sat in meetings and didn't know what people were necessarily talking about. But look, I've really built my knowledge and built those relationships and built my understanding of the school. And to Susie's point about the typical term of being a school governor for 4 years, I really support that because that commitment, you start to be able to add more and more values. You understand the school better, whether it's the school team or the local community better, or how education system works. I think you can, your broader skills can add more and more value over time. Right now, I'm no longer the chair, so I completed my 4-year term, but I'm responsible now primarily for our like careers links. So making sure that there's a set of like Gatsby benchmarks that are used to make sure that kids get good careers education. And again, my real passion for my business career and kind of professional career, trying to make sure that young people have a vision for where their future career could lead.
Fantastic. So it's very clear to me that you brought a huge amount to that board in terms of both your personal commitment, but also your professional skills and insight. Say a little bit about what you feel you've gained personally and professionally from being a governor. What have you been able to take into your personal and professional lives from the experience of being a governor?
I think from a first, like one really important aspect for me is working with skill I've developed is working with very different stakeholders. Like the people I'm working with within like my professional life at the time when I first got involved, I worked in the banking sector. A lot of people I was, working with had been in the banking sector for many, many years. And actually coming to this role where you have people from all different demographics, different professional careers, the school team versus the governors, the local authority, just so many different stakeholders, and obviously the students, the young people in the school. So I think that for me was just that was very refreshing, but also hugely beneficial in terms of developing my broader skills. I think particularly then going into the chair role was very helpful. I wasn't really getting necessarily those opportunities at work so much to be kind of chairing a group, particularly with, such a diverse group of governors, for example. So that ability to make sure that we were focusing on the right thing, taking a step back, taking a strategic view, both supporting but also holding the school team to account, I've found hugely beneficial then as I've transitioned in roles and progressed in my professional career, where I am then chairing those committees. It's been very helpful to develop those skills. So it has been a real journey. And I always say, like, a really important part for me in terms of that sort of skill development as well, the point you touched on, Dom, was like the well-being. I think particularly during the pandemic, where I had a ferociously busy professional career, professional role, actually the giving back into the community and that sense that we were making a difference and supporting at the time on, say, remote learning, was very beneficial actually to my, putting work to one side. Actually, that slight separation was very beneficial to my personal well-being too.
Yeah, fantastic, really insightful. And we hear from a lot of people actually who saw governor as an entry level to non-exec career, as they go through their kind of careers, and then became charity trustees, then have moved into that kind of non-executive arena. So it's really interesting that you've highlighted on that. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to ask you one last question. I'm going to ask you to think about it, and while we do that, we'll check to see whether any advanced questions have been submitted. I'm going to ask you for what was your most challenging moment as a governor, and then I'm going to ask you for your most favourite moment to end on, if that's okay. But Alice, did we have any pre-submitted questions?
Yes, we did. We've had an interesting question, which is about the risks of being a school governor, and if there are any risks associated with it, and whether you would recommend taking out insurance as part of being a school governor.
Okay. Interesting that we've got that question. We when we speak to lots of bars and a lot of legal organisations as well as financial organisations, and that does come up in terms of people having an anxiety over whether it compromises their professional career in any way. And I think my response to that is highly unlikely that it would ever do that. It's well recognised that governors as long as they're acting in alignment with the 7 Nolan principles of public life, where you're acting with integrity, where you're not, for example, signing off on Uncle Dave's paving playground business when you've got a cheaper tender, you'll be fine as long as you're applying good decision making with good intent on the available information that you've got. You are essentially not at risk in any way. And I think, Alex, I don't know what you feel about that in terms of your experience. It'd be good to hear that.
I think, again, like one of the real positives, I think, with school governor roles is that, in our case, for example, is that, we are, part of a wider local authority. We have a number of, obviously, policies and procedures within the school, some which are, bespoke to our school, some are actually essentially like local authority templated policies. Yeah. They give us like guidance and protocols for many different scenarios where, it can get more complex or tricky, whether it's a complaint or, whether it's, procurement. I think the other side to it is when we've had a few scenarios over the last 6-7 years where it's got like even more complicated, almost to the legal side. That's where, again, we've worked with the local authority, whether it's HR or legal, specialist HR or legal support, to make sure that we've got that alongside, the skills that we're developing in our own professional lives. So it's not something that's been a major concern for me, and I felt very well supported the whole way through.
Yeah, that's really helpful, because if you're part of maintain primary school or secondary school, for example, the employer and the pensions is the local authority. If you're part of an academy trust, that's the academy trust. But most academy trusts have really quite strong structures in terms of their access to HR, legal, and their financial management within the trust. So again, the element of risk is very much minimised. Good. Okay. So Alex, then just to conclude, then what was your most challenging moment?
Yeah. So I was like,
and what was your favourite moment?
I've slightly cheated here because I've kind of dragged a few together, but I think on the challenging. So when I took on the role as chair, we then received a letter a week later saying that Ofsted were coming in for their inspection. So relatively early on in role. That was a really difficult process. But positive in the sense at the time we were classified as good across like the 4 measures. Right. Linked to sort of most enjoyable and progress. Over the 4 years as chair, we almost covered every scenario you've sort of touched on. So I was just making a list here. So we appointed a new head teacher. We expanded the physical size of the school in terms of buildings, but also student numbers. Went from 1,200 to 1,500. We actually progressed to having the highest attainment rate and progress rate of the local authority funded schools in Brighton and Hove, which was incredibly proud of as an achievement. And also we had Ofsted just as I was coming out as chair, and we went to being classified as outstanding on 3 of the 4 measures. Unfortunately, not all 4. Wow. Slightly heartbreaking, but 3 of the 4 measures, and it gives us something to aspire to. But so the progress there, was all of those different things were really challenging at the time, but to come out, expanding the physical presence of the school, but not impacting student numbers. Obviously also had a pandemic, and went to remote learning. Yeah. So we did so many things in that time, but to see actually that really important for me was that the student outcomes were improving the whole way through, and that people wanted to come to the school and they saw it as being an amazing platform for their future lives. And I think the key sort of outputs of that, and it's now the highest first preference secondary in Brighton Hove. So again, super proud. I just think that's all the sort of the glory side, and obviously touched on some of the formal side of chairing meetings, but the part that I actually enjoy the most is trying to get into the school between the meetings. And Susie touched on that. You've got your formal meetings, but get it back in, and whether that's the big moments like the school play or the sports day or the open evenings, but actually it's as much the other moments. So I regularly go in for the Friday hot chocolate with the head teacher, where they bring in students that have done amazing things just in the past week. We celebrate what they've achieved, and I love moments like that where you hear from them directly why they love the school, what we could do to make it even better. That's the most important part for me.
Fantastic. Alex, massive thank you. What you bring to it and what you gain from it absolutely close in what you said that, and we really hope people will get inspiration from that and sign up to Inspiring Governance, because schools definitely need your skills and will welcome you as a governor. So thank you ever so much, Alice, for having us. Hopefully we'll get some.
And we've got a couple more slides, if you wouldn't mind, Susie, just resharing your screen. I wanted to give a big thank you to you guys for sharing your expertise and your time with us today. It was such an insightful session, and for me, I think that statistic that 97% of the school governors that you spoke to would recommend it to a friend is sort of the key statistic.
It's better than whiskers.
It's a no-brainer.
That's for a certain generation.
So you'll have heard, we've heard from Inspiring Governance about how to get involved as a school governor. Just a quick reminder before we finish that on Charterpath we have a whole host of different volunteer opportunities for finance professionals. So do have a look at our website for more information. Over the past 2 years, we've built a really diverse Charterpath community. We've got over 1,800 people now with finance skills who are looking to get involved and to volunteer. So if you support us on our mission, it would be brilliant to follow us on LinkedIn. Thanks, Susie. And also to sign up to be a Charterpath volunteer, which you can do on our website. So the links will be available along with these slides for you to follow through and join us. And thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. Thank you to Inspiring Governance. And please do get in touch if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you all.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.